Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing some more trending nail art and today is this 3D peony flower. I've seen these absolutely everywhere on Pinterest. And I'm just using some of these caviar pearls that we sell. We do different colours, but I chose gold for the centre of this flower. And I'm just going to mix them in some Clear as Day builder gel and it'll kind of make them glue all together, and it's going to be like an ongoing technique that we're just going to repeat in here. So I'm going to be using, you know, like a disposable wooden cuticle pusher, and this is going to act as our stem while we're making it because we can just snap it off at the end. So I'm just going to use the pointy end and I'm just going to kind of push all of these beads together and try and get them in a ball, if that makes sense. I'm just going to try and get them as spherical as possible and cure it as quickly as I can. So there's a lot of twirling and twisting involved in this just to get it like round. So once I've just done that first bit, I'm just going to cure it and just go in and try and do a second layer of this just to make it a little bit rounder because it was a little bit more elongated than I was after. So this first layer is definitely the trickiest because you're working with something 3D in the builder gel. So here you can see I've just kind of got it on there and I'm just going to try and push it around until I'm happy with the shape. It doesn't have to be totally perfect, just as long as it looks like a ball. I'm going to pop that in the lamp to cure, and you just want to keep twisting the stick while it's in the lamp because that'll stop it from curing wonky, if that makes sense. If you've ever seen anyone do glass blowing, it's a similar technique to that where you just keep rolling it around so it stays in that spherical shape. So I'm just adding a load of plain builder gel in here and I'm just going to be using this to layer up. So once I've done that first layer, I'm just dipping it in and doing a coat of that and it'll just give it another 3D ball around it. You can see the technique of how to cure it, just keep twisting that round. Next, I'm going to take some gel residue remover just to wipe off that tacky layer because if you use our builder gels, you know they do have like a thick tacky layer on them. So wipe that all off, and then I'm using Snow White and I'm just going to be adding on some petals. So for this one specifically, I'm showing you how to do the petals wider from the inside, and on the other one I've done them much skinnier, so at the end you'll see the difference. So I'm just trying to space them out somewhat evenly here, and I'm going to be like alternating where they go as we add more to this, so just leave a little gap in between them. I've cured that and then I'm just dipping it back in that Clear as Day builder gel and just like say keep rolling it around until it makes a perfect ball, and I'm just going to stick that in the lamp to cure, wipe it off again. For the next layer I'm using Ballet Shoes, so I'm just going to add that to a palette and take a little brush again, and I'm just doing petals in between the ones I've already done. And you can totally change this about. You could start with a darker colour in the middle and get lighter as you go out. I've decided to go with the gold in the middle and then kind of get a little bit darker as I go out towards the edge of the flower. But you could totally play with this and do totally different flowers as well. I've cured that and then I'm just dipping it back in that Clear as Day builder gel just to do another 3D layer on top of that, and it just gives a little bit of dimension in between all of the petals. Wipe that off again and then we're using First Night for the next layer, and again just going in between all of the previous petals. The great thing about this kind of technique and this design is that you could prep these in advance before your client comes in. You don't have to do them while they're there, so it can save you a little bit of time with the client if you needed that. Cure that and then we're going back in with Clear as Day, cure it again, and then we're just going to wipe off that tacky layer. Like I say, it's really repetitive, so you can just keep going until you're happy with it. Next we're using Bath Bomb for the next layer of petals, and again just going in between, and this one shows up really well because it's a nice bright pink. So one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to make the next layer of petals taller than the previous ones because it'll kind of overshadow them. So you kind of want to make them a little bit shorter around the outside, as you can see I've done. Keep the inside with the longer ones as if it's all kind of curled up and hasn't opened yet, and then slightly more open ones which don't go as far down. I found once I got to this stage it was a little bit more difficult to dip it and get the right size and shape and everything, so I started going in with the actual brush from the Clearest Day. Obviously curing between all of these, and for the next layer we're using Miami Beach and just doing exactly the same thing again. And I'm just making this layer a little bit pointier. I just wanted to play around with the shapes of it just to see how it would look. Once that's cured, I'm just going back in with that Clearest Day, and like I say, I'm just using the brush at this point because it was just easier because the ball was just a little bit too big to be dipping without wasting loads of Clearest Day by pouring it into a little tub. And to get it the right shape, you can just like turn it upside down and spin it around and side to side until you're happy with it. Cue that, then I'm just wiping off that tacky layer again. And then I'm taking Jammy Devil for this next layer. And this is much more of a red tone, so it should show up nicely around the outside. I'm just going to make sure that the bottom's all covered as well, especially with this being the last layer. Cue that, then I'm taking top coat just to seal it all in, just to make sure that nothing gets stuck to it and it's just kind of ready to go. So I'm just going to snip that off, and as you can see that wooden stick was a little bit difficult, so I'm just going to snap it with my hands, and that worked really, really well. And then I'm just taking my e-file just to file down the bottom. You can just use a hand file as well, but I just found this was easier and quicker, and I'm almost making it a little bit curved so it curves with the nail as well. But I'm just making sure that that wooden stick is fully sanded down. Obviously you don't want any splintery bits or anything like that, and you just want to make sure it's as flat as possible, or concave curved if that makes sense, so it fits around a nail. And there you go, there's two of them. You can see one has smaller petals in the middle and one bigger, because I just wanted to show you what two might look like done differently. So for the nail, I'm using Ballet Shoes for the background, so I'm just going to pop on a couple of coats of this and make sure it's fully cured. Once that's done, I'm using the nail tip gel adhesive to actually adhere these to the nails, because this is great for 3D stuff. I've said in videos before, it does have more of a rubbery texture than like really, really solid, which means that if you put 3D things on and they get kind of knocked at all, it has a little bit of movement, so they're less likely to just pop off. So I'm just going to push that into the product and make sure I spin them around until I'm happy with the placement and how they look. Once they're in place, I'm going to take a silicone tool and I'm just going to kind of pull back off the product where it's not needed, because you don't really want all of that 3D clear goop on the nail when it just needs to be underneath those roses. You can just use some gel residue remover to make sure that the silicone tool doesn't stick to anything, because obviously the nail tip gel adhesive is quite sticky, and just make sure that the nail is clean and there's not loads of texture left over. Once that's cured, I'm taking some of these really cute little tiny rhinestones and some of the teardrop ones as well, because I thought the teardrop ones would work well as almost like petals, and some more of the caviar too. And I'm just going to be using some brush on glue, and I'm just going to dab this on where I want these bits, and I'm just going to put them around the flowers, almost tapering them down away from the flowers. It'll make it look a bit softer and just add a little bit more detail. I have to say I found this bit really, really difficult to actually just put these on where I wanted them to. I don't know, I was just having a bit of a day. So as you can see, it took me a couple of like seconds to actually do that because the glue was drying quite quick as well. And the picker upper pen was working maybe a little bit too well for me that day. I think I might have got a little bit of glue on it. I think that's why. So yeah, I'm just getting those caviar pearls on again and just getting them in the right place and just adding on some rhinestones as well. So here I'm just adding in one of those green teardrops just to make a leaf, and I think it looks really cute actually. I didn't know whether the green might be too much, but it's a little bit more pastely, so it looks really cute. On the other side, I'm just taking the other caviar pearls because I just wanted to add some more pink into the nail as well. And I'm just going to do pretty much the same thing as the other side, just in a slightly different position. I'm just going to let that air dry, and then I'm going to take some top coat and just go over the rest of the nail. You don't need to worry too much about those flowers because we did top coat them earlier, but if you want to go over them, you absolutely can. This is more just to seal in the nail and the other gems on there too. And once that's secured, the nail's all done. I think this is such a fun look and a little bit different for florals as well. Florals at the moment seem to be a lot more like widespread rather than kind of like buds, and I quite like a flower bud. So anyway, let me know what you think down below. Tell us what you want to see next time. If you want any of the products, they'll be linked down below as well, and we'll see you soon. Bye.